Park niggas know me. Curtbone, little homie. All days, yeah. Been a road.
Okay, man, I'm gonna ask you about that Sean Branch interview. Saying that
Right.
that joint went crazy too.
Crazy. That was an interview I didn't even want to do at first.
Why is that?
Because of his reputation. What I mean by that is we were introduced, and once we were introduced, only thing that I knew about him is what I Googled or what I read. So I'm like, damn. At that point, I didn't have anybody on my platform with that amount of rec, and I was introduced to him by by Kareem Mowat. He hits me up one day and he says, "Yo." He like, "Yo, you want to interview Sean Branch?" I'm like, "Who is Sean Branch?" He was like, "Teflon Sean. He just came on." He like, "Look him up." So I looked him up. I called him back. I'm like, "Hell no." I'm like, "Hell no." I want to interview.
Right.
So, this is before he was a published author.
Right. Okay.
I believe within probably 90 days, 4 months, something like that, he came out with a book. So now the complexion of this whole situation changes. This isn't someone who was charged with 10 homicides or beat 10 homicides or whatever. This is a published author. This is a professional now. So my position at that point was interviewing a professional. And if you go look at our initial interview, he was guarded, and I was guarded as well. It was a little bit anxiety because we didn't know each other, and I was responsible for introducing someone who might not have had the most positive story at the time. My responsibility was to construct the interview and put out an interview that painted Sean Branch in a positive light.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We not killers. We not gangsters. Nothing that. Those are all titles that we chose to wear.
Right.
I wanted to introduce Sean Branch as a published author, and during the course of that, I ended up finding out how he spent his time in jail and all of the accreditations he gained and the education, and he actually did do a whole lot with his time in jail. So I wanted to pursue that alongside the fact that he wrote a book, and
you feel like you accomplished that? As far as getting them out in a positive light, or
yeah,
people see them in a
definitely,
different light?
definitely.
And you base it on your response from your fans, or what you base
Definitely.
it
We didn't speak about anything negative. If we did, I gave Sean the opportunity to clarify his actions or clarify what it was that he did. Out of the, I think, 11 homicides he was charged with, he was only found guilty of one. I allowed him to give an explanation for that because that the person, I believe his name was Michael Green. Michael Green was a black man, and somebody loved and respected him. And I, in his absence, I love and respect him as a black man. So,
respect
I wanted to provide Sean Branch with an opportunity to give some closure to Michael Green's family. So just exercising, just flexing a little bit with the power that I have at my platform at Gully TV. We don't have to promote murder.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of these, for instance, everybody that was on the Safe Streets Task Force report, these are all young guys. So a lot of
don't go to. I want to actually. I want to get to that.
All right.
I just seen that recently. That's how did you come about the paperwork on that?
somebody sent that. I believe at a point in time that I held that document for about 5 years. As I was going through these, through my travels of being Gully TV, I would get emails from people one of the first emails that I got anonymously was one of Wayne Perry's victims' family. Okay. And he was like, I watch your show. I enjoy your show. Wayne Perry actually killed my cousin, and I have this, this file that maybe, I don't know, maybe you'd like to read it, or maybe it can help you with something that you're working on. So after that, I believe I spoke about getting that document, and more people started to send documents in. The first time that I came in contact with the Safe Streets Task Force report was from interviewing Federal Agent Jerry Williams, the black lady who conducted the Wayne Perry interview. That
was a black FBI female.
Yeah, female. Okay. So after I met her, I believe she was the one that actually sent me a copy.
So what about, I seen a white FBI agent on Queen.
She was interviewing him. That's
the
what
same
she was
interview
interviewing.
On there. Okay.
Right.
Just so based on the information, because you've been doing your history work with DC and talking to a lot of different characters. So based on what you hear, the FBI agent on Queen Flip spoke about, based on what your knowledge, did you see a lot of flaws in his story? You feel like his story was
he might have been out of touch a little bit with some of the things that they said about Wayne Perry, but the Safe Streets Task Force did start in Washington D.C. And the Safe Streets Task Force was established to combat the R Street crew and the Kentucky, I can't remember all of the names of the crews, Congress Park crew and Montana Terrace, all of these crews. That's where the Safe Streets Task Force was established for, and they wrote a huge packet to support their claim that removing these crews from Washington D.C. would reduce crime, and I believe it did.
Right. Yeah, a lot of laws and strategies they got in a lot of urban cities around the country. They actually test ran it here first.
What I'm saying?
All the agencies down here and stuff like that, right? So we got a lot of shitty deals down here, man. But I'm gonna give you one thing on the DC thing before I'm gonna leave DC. So now that you had this relationship with DC, we can call it relationship because you did a lot of. You got the sports. You got any female interviews for DC females? Not
yet, but I spoke to Twala over the phone.
Okay,
maybe
Twala.
A couple of years ago.
Yeah, Twala Wayne's girl. Okay, so how do you compare DC cats against, say, Philly cats or different cats? What's the difference there? Because we got a lot of similar files, the boxing and stuff like that.
Philadelphia and DC got a lot of similarities.
A
lot of similarities. The boxing, the Islam, the culture, militant. A lot of militant black gangsters come out of DC, as well as Philadelphia. All the way down to the fashion. Whenever the New Balance thing come up, Philadelphia and DC. I don't see a lot of difference between guys from DC and Philadelphia. Based on research that I've done, before the crack game became real prevalent in DC, a lot of guys was taking money, doing armored car heists and banks and stuff like that. Philadelphia's story reads the same way.
Right. Okay. So a lot of similarities. I know we made that observation, especially for us in jail, because a lot. They one of the few cities like ours that you might catch anybody and they good with their hands. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They gonna push. They gonna do everything. You know. So I just want to get your curiosity.
Yeah, they with it.
Because I know you close to Philadelphia, that area. But yeah. So who was your biggest interview? What got your biggest response?
Haitian Jack probably opened up the most doors or put me on a global map. Yeah, Haitian Jack, because of his affiliation with Tupac Shakur. So I've had stories as big as that. The interview I did with Curtis Schoon about Jam Master Jay, that's just as big as far as impact and significance. But yeah, I would probably say Haitian Jack. Haitian Jack made gangsters want to be on my platform. That Haitian Jack is such a revered gangster that other gangsters who wanted their story told, I wanted mine like that.
Right.
So Haitian Jack ended up being like my prototype.
Shout out to Haitian Jack, man. We talk often, man. Actually, we just talked recently. I'm trying to get him, figure out how I can get the interview with him, right? You know, because of course, he know he where he at. So when I'm mistaken, you went to DR to interview him?
Yeah, I went over there. Yeah.
How was that experience over there?
Great.
He had the same red carpet he had in New York and
fly guy, super fly guy, just electrifying aura, pretty.
Yeah, the pretty joke. He always like he bad with them bras. Always talk about.
Oh yeah, his resume is crazy, man. He's a world class hoe killer.
Oh
for
yeah,
real. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's up. That's what's up. So, what's your? I looked at because I've been Googling you, right? I said I've been having you coming down, man. I see you had. What was your relationship with the Cavario? I see y'all had some words or something.
Cavario was somebody who I looked up to in media. He wrote a lot of books. He helped establish Diva magazine. Everything that he had done in this business was something that I aspired to be. So he didn't have any reason to feel insecure about me because I was trying to get on his level. Our disconnect began about Alpo Martinez. Alpo was somebody that I was outright pursuing. I didn't care under no circumstances with anybody.
You wasn't give a fuck about the codes.
I didn't care about none of that.
Journalism mode.
I wasn't gonna let CNN, MSNBC. I wasn't gonna let those guys beat me to it. Nah, I've seen them do it. They've done it repeatedly. They've done stories about people who is still incarcerated, who had no input on the story, and they wake up one day and their story's on TV. I felt Alpo's story was so big that it was worth applying myself. And
don't lose your thought. But are you saying that you think at that time that he was CNN worthy, or
hell yeah,
or you seen that potential right there, or you thought
I had interviewed at that point. I had interviewed Haitian Jack. It was nobody bigger than Haitian Jack in urban media besides Alpo. Yeah, without a doubt. The movie, he came with his own movie. He came with his own cult following movie, Paid in Full. Not to mention a bunch of other shit, but I didn't feel that it was anything bigger than him. In death, even when he died, everybody that does media tell you that was their biggest month. My channel did 2.4 million views on the month that Alpo died, and that was basically because of all of his videos. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. The boy Cavario, he's an elegant speaker, very intelligent on it. I was
very intelligent, very, very good at writing books. I made him feel insecure, and by me getting close to Alpo, Cavario was talking about Alpo and talking about a relationship that they had. I don't know the depth of their relationship, but I went further. I went and just outright met him, and it was known that me and him was interacting. And
you met him? Y'all met face to face?
I went and met him in person
before he started making all these debuts on social media.
Yeah.
What was that like? What was it at? Where y'all meet at?
I met him on 124th and 7th or 8th Ave in Harlem. Magic Johnson Theaters, that's where we met at, and we walked through downtown Harlem, and I was shooting my pitch at him. I was trying to convince him that I was the best person to do a documentary on his life. As credentials, my resume, I had Haitian Jack. Now, here's the only other whale of a New York City gangster who has a documentary out, and I did it. This is what got me this meeting with him. So we were walking through downtown Harlem, and I was kind of annoyed because I'm saying to myself, I'm like, damn, what if somebody run up and, spray us and shit, or somebody try to run up and hit him? And he wasn't concerned with none of that. He made it clear to me. He said, he was like, these people don't know me. He's like, these people you see walking around, these are kids. He like, maybe their parents would spot me, but he was telling me why he was able to walk around in broad daylight. The generation that's out on the street right now, don't know who he is.
And it's funny. It's funny that you say that because I always, guys like him and a few other guys that come to mind, I always say to myself, I say they kind of know they kind of outdated. Nobody not familiar with them. Also, not even speaking with the security cameras everywhere. So there's a lot of things I've been saying that might play in their mind to make them feel it's coming. Because I'd be curious, but I didn't want to cut you off. You can get back walking down the street with them.
So yeah, we walking down the street, and I basically conducted my interview there. Anything that I wanted to ask him, it was right there. I asked him. I asked him so many questions to the point he asked me, was I wired? He said,
hold on. He asked you, was you wired?
He asked me, was I wired? Tickle you.
Right. That's funny.
She's like, man, you record me, man? I'm like, nah, man. But, yeah, I got to ask him. I took him into that fashion bag. We was talking about fashion. We was talking about clothes and girls and shit like that. I took him to a place where it wasn't about Rich Porter. I knew that he was uncomfortable with that. I knew he didn't want to talk about that. We don't have to talk about that. We talked about LL Cool J and some of his other associates.
So again, you was fortunate enough to have a relationship with the DC guys. Obviously, you talked to Alpo extensively.
Let me say something about that. I believe I spoke about it briefly in this book. I wasn't.
What's the book? This
is a book I wrote. This is called Some Things I've Been Through. This is about my interactions for a period of about 3.5 years with some of the world's most notorious gangsters. And while this was going on, I was just working. I never really looked at it until I had already did it. But I was like, damn, nobody from DC ever got offended or said anything to me about talking about Alpo, doing media about Alpo, just having Alpo's name in my mouth and being able to come down here to DC and talk to honorable men who don't fuck with Alpo, don't give a fuck about him. And they never said anything, and I never said anything. And it was just, I don't know, I believe out of respect and out of my approach, my professionalism, I was permitted to do that, and I believe it. I know it's unheard of. I know it's unheard of. There's very sensitive feelings between New York City and DC about what happened back then. And I kind of straddled the fence of the topics. Like I was just doing my job. I was doing what I found to be passionate, and I wasn't violating no codes. I was just telling a story.
Right.
So.
Right. And at the end of the day, you feel like it was real worth it as far as getting your brand up and going to the next level?
Man, it started to happen so fast. It started happening so fast, and it got so wild, I had to pour basketball on it.
That's why you shot the sports like that? Okay.
That's why I started pouring the Steve Francis and the G Wiz, the Greg DeWitt. It was too much. It was too much.
And look, behind the scenes, like, we ain't touching that, but like years ago, you kept trying to get me to speak on. I kept on telling you, man.
I was hot as fire, man. You wasn't fucking with me.